Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Karma Cards. So, I feel like every week I start with how intense the energy is, and this week's no different. Okay, so we just had the new moon partial solar eclipse happen on October 25th, and that partial solar eclipse, it indicated the emptying out. Now, usually new moons are about what's coming in. This one was definitely about what's emptying out. And in the process of the 2 weeks up to the next full moon, we're having this new beginnings that actually starts with a deep clearing out. So you've probably noticed some things leaving your life, either by necessity, like you're just like, I have to be done, or somehow feeling like it's been taken off of your plate in some way, either in a way that feels good or maybe in a way that can feel a little bit abrupt or shocking. And that's because on November the 8th, we have the total lunar eclipse plus full blood moon in Taurus coming in. And that is going to be bringing in new things into our life. So there's this big energy of an emptying out at a deep level. And inside this eclipse window, between these two eclipses, we have Mars, which has stationed retrograde, and that happened on Sunday, October 30th. So with Mars stationing retrograde, this is one of the retrogrades we tend to feel. So the personal planets, or the faster moving planets, those planets that are closer to Earth, are the planets we tend to feel when they go into retrograde. So that includes Mercury retrograde. A lot of people feel that one. Venus retrograde, which we had earlier in the year. And now Mars retrograde. And so with Mars retrograde, this is about taking action, or our ability to take action, or how we like to take action, right? It can be very direct, and it can be very confrontational, and even to the point of causing conflict. And so when Mars goes retrograde, we're feeling all that internalized. And what happens is, when we take action, that usually has outward directing energy. So Mars being a masculine planet, that energy is always directed outward. When it goes inward, that can create this feeling of like frustration, like I can't quite get it out there the way I want to get it out there. Or you can create a feeling of inner conflict, like almost battling against yourself in some way. And it can lead to being easily overwhelmed or frustrated, or feeling like stuck in a rut in some way. Some people, they don't feel this energy as intensely as other people feel it. So it depends on, what camp you're in, whether or not this really affects you on a deep level, but it does affect us collectively. So sort of this feeling of frustration, or this inability to have the action we want happening now. Like maybe I want it now and I'm not getting it now, right? Inside a window where things are being stripped away, made room for. So that which no longer serves us gets stripped away. And with that partial solar eclipse, it was in Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. So it is a power purge moment. It is this moment of like, you don't need this anymore. It's out. And it's not always something that you agree with. It's not always something that you agree with. For example, inside that window, I lost one of my beloved animals. I didn't agree that this needed to be stripped away. But with the stripping away comes the things you need to know. Need to know about yourself, need to know about your own progress and handling it. So it's not always a stripping away that you agree with, which can create that frustration, especially with Mars going retrograde, right? We can feel frustrated, angry, resentful, rebellious around this. So this energy has a really tight feeling to it. It's tight because it feels like it's almost imploding if you're not moving through it with the gentleness that you need to move through it with. And that brings me to today's message. And now I meditated on this. I had so many ideas of what I wanted to speak with you about today, but I felt the call to ask my team to sit with them and say, like, tell me what it is you want me to share today. And they brought me a whole story. So I'm going to share this story with you. These are the animal medicine cards. I absolutely love these cards. And usually when I call for a message from them, I get one distinct card. But this time they brought me 3. And it tells a story when you listen to them. So I'm going to give you the sequence of events and you'll see how they're trying to communicate to us through these beautiful animal medicine cards. So to start with, we have what's called contrary crow. So when it's in a reverse position, this is known as the contrary position. With contrary crow, we are dealing with a feeling of being rebellious or rejecting something that's coming our way. We don't like what's in the reality that we're dealing with. Perhaps it has to do with something being taken away from your life that you didn't fully agree to have taken away. And so it can create an energy of conflict, right? Conflict within, but also wanting to rebel. Like, you know, if the universe is saying to you, guess what? This is a time to purge things. It's time to let go. You need to make space. Something new is coming. And you're resisting that. That's rebellion right there. And so you can see that contrary crow really does represent that Mars retrograde energy. And it's just letting us know that there's a couple of things here. There's rebellion. And then the rebellion, why? Why the rebellion? The rebellion has to do with not wanting to see the truth of something, right? So it has to do with how we sort of cheat ourselves out of the truth. How do we avoid what we need to face, right? And some examples of this might be maybe you're trying to get a new job and you really want to get the new job. You know your life would be better, but the work that you're going to have to put into it, maybe it's more than you thought. And so you don't quite do it. So you apply to maybe one job once a week and tell yourself you're really trying, right? And so in that way, we're being dishonest with ourselves because yes, we applied to the job, but we didn't apply to as many as we're telling ourselves, right? And so we are almost overemphasizing the aspect of what we're doing. Another way to look at it is like, let's say you are trying to cut sugar out of your diet for your own health. And what you find is that for the most part, you're cutting sugar out, but now your kids brought Halloween candy home and you snuck a couple of pieces, but you're telling yourself you've cut out sugar, right? So we're omitting information from ourselves. And it's something that we do to sort of save face with others, but we also do this with ourselves. And so contrary crow is asking us to look at, where am I cheating myself? Where am I not being honest with myself about my own behavior or activities? Because that's what's causing the resistance in me, is that I'm not fully honest with the situation I find myself in. I'm not honestly communicating, not so much to others, but really to myself. I'm not showing myself the truth. And when I don't do that, and something comes into my life that is going to clear out the corners so everything is exposed, we rebel against that, because when it gets cleared away, what are you left with but the truth, right? And so it's asking us to be honest, to turn this upright, is to be honest with ourselves and acknowledge what we are keeping hidden from ourselves, where we're keeping ourselves out of our truth. And the way to do this is with deer. So deer is in the upright position. Deer represents gentleness, right? So there is a way to come to terms with the truth within ourselves, and it is not through our anger or our frustration or confrontation, but rather kind of sitting with yourself and acknowledging that wherever I'm withholding the truth from myself, I am afraid of the consequences. Wherever I am withholding truth from myself, I am afraid of the consequences. I don't want to see them. And when you have somebody on your side, I want you to think about it kind of like a therapist in a way, or someone that's a confidant that you trust. Someone that will sit with you in that space and say to you, you know, we all struggle. Everybody's human. It's okay. And then you suddenly let the truth out. And you're like, I haven't been able to stop indulging in what I know isn't good for me. I haven't been able to find the will to put in the effort I need to put into to do what I need to do. When we have that gentle, non-judgmental being with us that allows us to be vulnerable and reveal our truth, well, then finally the truth can be said and we can finally face it. And then the healing can begin. And what this card is letting us know is that we can do this for ourselves. And you know, this really goes into last week's message about learning how to befriend yourself. This is how you would befriend yourself. So notice that the reason it might be hard to face the truth about a situation that you've created for yourself is because of how harshly you judge yourself for not doing it the way you wanted to or right? Everybody has an inner critic. Some of us have incredibly harsh and intense inner critics. The harsher your inner critic, the harder it is to face your truth. So this card is asking us to become an ally, a gentle, safe space for us to face our own truth. And again, we can learn to do this for ourselves, and we must learn to do this for ourselves. But in the meantime, have someone in mind that you feel is a safe space for you to be in your truth, right? If you know somebody in your life who's a safe space for you to be in your truth, imagine them sitting there listening to you, right? Holding that space, allowing you to be vulnerable without judgment. And if you can imagine that person, it's almost like you can invoke that type of energy within you. And as you do that, then you allow yourself to have a sacred container for which you can become vulnerable and see your truth and start to heal. And now it gets to the cool part, which is really the reward, if you will. There is a reward for doing this work, and that shows up as Raven. So Raven represents magic. And what it's letting you know is by doing this work where you are facing the thing you are hiding from yourself. So you're coming face to face with your truth, you're being vulnerable, and you're doing it through an act of gentleness, gently holding space for yourself. Magic occurs. And the magic is the raising of a new level of consciousness. So it's letting us know that as we do this work, we will experience more of the magic of the mystery of life. We're getting closer and closer to this internal truth of just how amazing of a being you are. And it's literally clearing out, the clearing out that I talked about earlier. Yes, there's some things in your external world that might get cleared out, but more and more, it's the inner clutter. It's the thinking that's in the way of you experiencing the greater part of yourself. And so as we clear the lies and the deception that we put on ourselves away, we get to see more of the great mystery of life, more of life's magic, more of your greater ability, right? Because remember, this human self, this conscious mind is just a fraction of what you truly are. But it's interesting how clutter in this little space can sort of block out this greater version of ourselves. So again, this period of time, it might not be the most pleasant period of time that you've been in, but it certainly is one of the most potent periods of time. And it's clearing away anything that is holding you away from your truth. And as you get closer and closer to your truth, the amazing thing is your critic really does start to quiet down. It really does start to quiet down. And there could be several reasons for that. But the point is that the closer we get to our truth, the more we hold that loving space for ourselves, the more of ourselves we are able to see. And then we get to move into new fields of energy where we start to perceive not only ourselves differently, but we will also perceive the world much differently. And with that, let's do this week's karma cards. All right, if you are new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I have 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what is the message you have for us this week? And I have 3 sets of answers: a set in red, which are action-related answers, and a set in blue, which are outcome-related answers. And the way that you play is you tune in with that beautiful intuition of yours and feel, what messages do you need this week? Are you looking for action-related answers, or are you looking for outcomes? And of course, you can always choose both. And the timing for this reading is November 2nd through November 9th. Now, the flavor of this reading, we've got Neptune, which is a very dreamy planet, and it can be a little bit nebulous. It's very hard sometimes to grasp what when it comes to Neptune's energy, because it's very ephemeral. It's not a very solid type planet. So we know that our actions are going to be maybe going within more, maybe dreaming more, meditating more is usually guidance. In the sign of Gemini, which is actually where Mars is retrograding right now. So we've got the communicator, expressor sign working with Neptune in the 4th house. 4th house represents the past. It also represents where, like, our start point, and it represents where we feel most at home. It represents family as well as our intuition, so our inner world. For those who are choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to inspire others with what you want to be known as you did in the past. This is a time where it's not telling someone how to do anything, but rather being, right? So we're inspiring others with what we want to be known, so expressing ourselves as we did in the past. So this really is talking about inspiring through self-expression, through your own behavior, right? And as you did in the past, representing like you've done this before, so do that again. You have tapped into this energy before. This isn't a new type of energy. This is really you sort of like coming back around to it again and tapping back into this, being the fullest version of you, which inspires others to do the same. Mental action at this time. Be prepared to sacrifice for what is believed about your home base or your family. Again, so what we're looking for, so the sacrifice is what I was talking about, the letting go. Something has to go, right? So this is what we're letting go of right now, what is believed about your home base or your family. So with Gemini in the mix, it's talking about the mind, right? What do I think in my mind happened there? So part of the purging process right now, it looks like let go of the stories of who you thought you were. In fact, if you follow me on Instagram, last week I posted a Dolores Cannon clip, and she was talking about let go of the hurt from your past, let go of this thing that happened and that thing that happened. You don't need it. You can't bring it with you. And really, that's what this big clearing out period is for. As we shift higher and higher in frequency, we can't take lower frequency thoughts and feelings with us. They literally hold us back in the vibration that we're leaving. So here's the thing. It's like, yes, there's this big sweeping vibrational change that will come through. If you refuse to let go of what happened, then you're sort of weighting yourself down. It's like my mind, they're showing me in The Wizard of Oz, you know, where they're leaving at the end with the hot air balloon, and they need to cut those sandbags off. Well, those sandbags represents thoughts, feelings, and emotions about the past, what I believed happened. You know, you've been through it, but you can't change it. And therefore, it's just see it for what it was. If you can recognize the gift in it, and I do believe there's a gift in everything, even the worst things that happen, there is a gift. It's the meaning of it, right? We can learn from it, but we ultimately must let it go. And in doing so, we can then rise easily into the next vibration rather than being weighted and pulled down into a past or lower vibration. physical action at this time. Yielding is the only way to use the quickest way and do what makes you feel secure. So again, surrender to this process. Let go of the lies you tell yourself. Let go of the stories of the past. Let them all go. It's the fastest way to feel more secure. It's the fastest way to feel better. And so if you are ready, surrender. Don't be like Crow. Right? Crow is trying to teach us. If you rebel against this, if you continue to lie to yourself, you sort of stay in that place of resistance. And resistance does feel like a stagnant and stuck energy. To move out of that is simply to let it go. It's like, yep, I cheated there. Yep, I didn't follow through there. Yes, right. Yes, I'm holding on to that. Yes, I have resentment and I need to let that go. Being willing to do that, we are assuring that not only will we lift ourselves up in frequency, but we'll also feel more secure in ourselves. And I feel like that's a really good payoff. All right, now let's look at outcomes for Neptune and Gemini in the 4th house. The spiritual outcome at this time is the idealization of information to explain what makes you feel secure. So the idealization, right? So Neptune tends to put things up on a pedestal. So it sees its highest potential, but it also can mean making things too much of a big deal. So it's easy right now to get, what I hear what they're saying is like, hey, it's going to be really easy right now to hear the concept and feel like you did the work, right? How many times have you done that in your life? I do it all the time. It's like, oh my God, I completely understand that concept. And therefore, since I understand it, I've done it. And it's like, no, you understand it. You haven't done it until you got in there and got a little messy with it, right? Like you have to feel it and heal it, let it go. Then you've done it. So it's easy at this time to sort of romanticize that, the understanding is the doing. No, you still have to have the doing part to feel secure, right? It's really interesting because the information will give you false security, meaning it's like, now that I understand it, that makes so much sense and I feel so at peace with myself. And that's a good start. But if you want to feel security, that's the work part, which is everything I just said we should focus on. Mental outcome at this time. Confusion regarding communication about support. Again, what I get from this is we have resistance. Remember, Crow came up, which meant like, hey, people are feeling resistant or rebelling this process. It's not a fun process. Although, once you get into it, it's kind of like cleaning your house, right? Before you clean or do deep organization, you're like, ugh, I have to do this and I don't want to, and it takes so long and it's so dirty, and it's like, oh, I'd rather be doing something else. That's our mental process around the deep clean that we need to do. But you notice that once you start the work and you get in there and you get to see it in action and you see things getting better and feeling better, then suddenly you get some mojo around it, right? And you're like, okay, I just did the bathroom. Now I'm going to do the bedrooms. Now, I want to hit the garage, right? Like you get going. And so what this is letting us know is like, again, there's a tendency right now to get caught up on the words or the information around it rather than the doing. So you're going to get mixed signals from yourself in this process. And that's human. It's normal. It's fine. But that's what we want to be aware of right now, is those mixed signals of like, okay, I listened to the meditation, or I watched the video and now I understand it and I feel more at peace with what's happening. That's great. But we still have to get in there and do that work. And what you'll notice is that resistance. There's the other information. I don't want to do this. I don't have the energy for it. All the excuses will come up. It won't lift. The veil of confusion doesn't lift until you're in it and you're doing it. And then suddenly it's like clarity, ahas, awareness, stimulation, like ready to go. Now I want to do some more, right? So it's one of those things where you don't really get into it until you're in it. I hope that makes sense. Physical outcome at this time, sacrifice resulting from the fluctuations of your home base or family. Again, sacrifice is the letting go, right? It's the surrender, the letting go. And again, this is, part of where we lie to ourselves or don't tell ourselves the whole truth is where we have expectations, right? Especially around other people, that we're literally holding a candle in some cases for someone to finally see us, someone to finally recognize what they did and atone for it. And in some cases, that just doesn't happen. So every once in a while, someone gets one of those, and that's great. But for the most part, unless the other person is aware and open and ready to acknowledge that, holding an expectation that they're going to change so that you can heal is literally holding yourself hostage in a way, because you're withholding your own healing until that other person gets their shit together and figures it out and does the work that you feel they need to do. And unfortunately, it just really doesn't work that way. It's really always been in our own hands to heal. It would be nice if other people were really a part of that. But see, they're in our lives for a purpose. And if you look at it from a spiritual contract level, they're with you in an agreement that they're going to bring you a scenario that allows you to grow through it. And in that way, they're in service to us. It might not seem like it in this life. We might be like, no, you really hurt me. And that's valid. That's your human experience on a soul level. They agreed to work with you through this so that you could receive catalyst for deep spiritual growth, so that you could do the work to heal and have more understanding in a certain area, even sometimes to balance out karma from past lives. And so this isn't to say anybody deserves any kind of punishment or cruelty or abuse, but rather to try to see it differently, to try to see that yes, someone has wronged you, and yet them getting their crap together is not the impetus for your healing, but rather you choosing to let that go and heal yourself. And in doing so, it will help integrate your soul more deeply. And two, it will shift your perspective, and you'll finally start to see them in a light you didn't before, making it easier to understand and bringing you that inner peace that you're desiring now. So even though this time period, again, isn't necessarily the lightest of time periods, it has a very healing and deeply cleansing purpose. And the key, while going through it, is to be your own best friend here. Be that gentle, loving, safe space for you to be honest with yourself about the things that you're holding on to that you don't need to anymore. And in doing so, the gift is the raising of consciousness and the revealing of more magic in your life. And with that, I send you so much love. Mwah. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I release a new video. Until then, stay magical.